For 3 years, silence had been the only language spoken between the billionaire sheikh and the woman bound to him by a marriage neither had chosen. Tonight, under the shimmering canopy of stars, the palace corridors echoed with the weight of unspoken words, just before the storm that would change everything. The Emirates sprawled beneath an endless desert sky, a realm of golden sands meeting opulent grandeur. Palaces rose like mirages of wealth, their walls draped in silk and embroidered with threads of pure gold. The air was thick with the intoxicating scent of jasmine and sandalwood, mingling with the distant hum of desert winds, whispering secrets long kept. Inside the vast chambers of the sheikh's domain, silence was more than absence of sound. It was a fortress. He sat alone on a throne carved from rare ebony, his eyes dark pools reflecting a tumult of inner torment. The billionaire sheikh was a man wrapped in power, yet fractured by shadows invisible to all but himself. His jaw clenched, a restless spirit trapped beneath the facade of control. Years of solitude had forged within him a coldness no riches could thaw, a heart barricaded against past demons. Across the cavernous hall stood his bride, a woman forged in resilience. Her posture betrayed neither despair nor defeat, but a quiet strength sculpted through years of withheld longing. Behind her calm facade, a tempest of yearning simmered, concealed beneath the veil of patience she wore like armor. She had learned to endure the frost in his eyes, nurturing hope. In the desolate silence, their marriage was a fragile thread stretching taut between them, a union of convenience and duty, marked by distance and cold indifference. Yet beneath the surface of their fractured relationship, the invisible barrier of resentment and regret was unraveling. She sensed it in his restless movements, the flicker of hesitation behind his stern gaze. He too battled with the weight of secrets that kept his heart locked away. In a sudden shift, the sheikh rose from his throne, the air itself holding its breath. His presence filled the room, commanding, yet vulnerable, as he closed the gap between them with deliberate steps. The years of cold silence shattered like fragile glass. His hand, trembling just slightly, reached out, not with domination, but with a claim. Long delayed. "I will no longer let you remain a stranger in my home," he whispered, his voice rough with a mixture of pain and longing. Her breath caught as the spark ignited, a fierce collision of past regrets and unleashed desire. Every touch carried the weight of years lost, masked in the heat of a fire finally awakened between them. Hearts once broken trembled on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. As the night deepened, the sheikh and his bride stood facing each other, a moment charged with the possibility of redemption, love, and betrayal all intertwined. The journey ahead promised to test every thread of their fragile bond. Will they surrender to the shadows, or embrace the uncertain light of a new beginning? And before the next secret of this lavish emirate is unveiled, quickly check if you are already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be traced, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave your like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga? And what twist do you think is about to come? Your passion for these dramas is what inspires us to keep going. Thank you for being with us. The night stretched on, cloaking the palace in a velvet embrace, pierced only by the delicate flicker of countless stars. The air hung heavy with the scent of blooming jasmine, its sweetness a fragile contrast to the storm of silence between the billionaire sheikh and the woman who shared his name but not his heart. He stood just a breath away from her, the ebony throne abandoned in favor of the uneasy closeness that their marriage had never truly allowed. His dark eyes searched hers, no longer veiled by indifference, but shining with unspoken turmoil. The silence, once a fortress, now felt like a fragile thread fraying beneath the weight of years. Her breath hitched as his fingers trembled in the space between them, a hesitation so raw it shattered the last shards of their cold reserve. The billionaire sheikh, a man sculpted by power and hardened by grief, reached out with a tentative touch, gently tracing the line of her jaw, a gesture both claiming and seeking forgiveness. "You have lived these years as a stranger in my home," he murmured, voice thick with regret. "But I was the one who built these walls between us." Her eyes glistened, reflecting not just his remorse, but her own silent desperation. She had learned to mask her pain beneath a veil of composure, but beneath it a tempest raged, longing, fear, and a hope she dared not voice. "And yet," she whispered, "I was never truly yours to begin with." His hand lingered, warm against her skin, as if anchoring himself to a reality that had always slipped through his grasp. "Then let me earn you, piece by piece," he said, the vulnerability beneath his words striking her like a blow. "Let me break down these walls." Around them, the palace seemed to pulse with a new energy. The soft murmur of distant fountains, the rustle of silk curtains, stirred by a whispering breeze. The opulence that once suffocated now framed this fragile moment of reckoning. She stepped closer, courage kindled by the flicker of sincerity in his eyes. "Do you truly believe that love can grow from embers buried under bitterness?" she asked softly, voice trembling yet resolute. He met her gaze without flinching. "I believe nothing is impossible when the heart dares to face its own shadows." For a heartbeat, they stood suspended between the crumbling ruins of past grievances and the fragile dawn of something uncharted. The night air wrapped around them, thick with tension and promise. But peace was fleeting. A sharp sound shattered the moment. A hurried knock echoed through the ornate doors of the hall. Both turned swiftly, their fragile connection jolted back to the harsh reality of the palace. The chamberlain's arrival was seldom benign. His expression was grave, eyes dark pools reflecting urgency. "Your Highness, there is news from the eastern border. The tribes are restless. They demand an audience with the sheikh." The billionaire sheikh's jaw tightened, the calm facade cracking once more. The emirate he ruled so mercilessly was a delicate balance of power, and now flames of rebellion threatened to engulf the carefully constructed peace. She watched the tempest flicker behind his eyes, the unyielding strength that masked a man trapped between duty and desire. "Then your attention must return to the desert sands," she said quietly, stepping back. the distance between them widening once again. He nodded, a forced smile ghosting across his lips. Duty calls me to storms I cannot avoid, but know this, I will return, not as the man who turned away, but as one who seeks to reclaim what was lost. The doors shut behind him with a sonorous finality. Left alone, she sank onto the velvet divan, the room suddenly colder, emptier. Her heart ached, not only for the widening gulf between them, but for the secrets she carried, like shadows beneath her skin. There was a price to be paid for silence, and soon it would demand its reckoning. Across the palace, beneath the same desert moon, whispers serpentined through gilded halls. Servants exchanged furtive glances. Courtiers murmured. In hushed tones, as the rumor of unrest ignited sparks of fear and intrigue. But deeper than the geopolitical tempests, another storm brewed. The fragile alliance of two wounded souls clinging to hope in a world built on lies and unspoken truths. In the solitude of her chamber, she touched the delicate necklace concealed beneath her silk robe, a gift from a time when their hearts had dared to dream beyond duty. It was the tether to a secret she had sworn never to reveal, a secret powerful enough to shatter the empire she lived in. Outside, the desert winds howled, as if echoing the turmoil inside the palace walls. The billionaire sheikh, now engaged in battles far beyond the confines of his throne room, would soon face not only external enemies, but the ghosts of his own heart. And as the moon cast a pale light over the emirate, neither of them could imagine the revelations that awaited, but truth buried in the past, ready to unravel the fragile threads holding their world together. The night held its breath. The future whispered of danger, deception, and a love tested by fire. But before that dawn, someone watched from the shadows, eyes glinting with dark intent. A secret poised to ignite the silence and change everything. The palace corridors, once alive with whispered echoes, now held a suffocating stillness that pressed on their souls like the desert heat. She sat by the vast window of her private chamber, the silken folds of her gown pooling like shadows on the marble floor. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, bathed in the cold glow of the moon. Her fingers trembled as they traced the delicate pendant resting against her chest, a remnant of a dream once shared, now a silent vow to keep her secret locked away. The weight of solitude pressed down upon her, a heavy shroud woven from years of misunderstood glances and unspoken regrets. Yet tonight, something unsettled the usual rhythm of her heart, an unease deeper than any fear she had known before. The message from the chamberlain had stirred more than just the sheikh's resolve. It had awakened a storm that traced its menace through the labyrinth of palace halls and into the core of her existence. Outside her door, shadows shifted quietly, voices hushed to whispers. The court was alive with rumors, their sharp edges cutting through the opulence like desert thorns. Rebellion, unrest, a fragile peace teetering on the brink of collapse. But beneath the political turmoil, a more intimate tempest brewed between two hearts, battered yet defiant. The door creaked open, and a familiar silhouette crossed the threshold. He stepped in, the bark of his footsteps swallowed by the plush carpets, his presence both commanding and fragile. The billionaire Sheikh's face bore the marks of sleepless nights, dark circles etched beneath eyes that had once sparkled with indifference, but now flickered with unnamed fears. His gaze sought hers, hesitating in the space where words faltered and feelings churned in silent waves. "I could not stay away," he confessed, voice low and rough. "Not after what passed between us." His breath seemed to catch, as if the weight of those words pressed against his ribs. "The desert may stretch wide, but it cannot keep me from facing the truth." She met his eyes, steady though her heart fluttered like a captive bird. "Truth has been a stranger here for far too long," she whispered. "Perhaps we clung to illusions because reality was too cruel." He closed the distance between them, the warmth of his proximity igniting a spark she thought extinguished. "Then let's dismantle the illusions, piece by piece. No more shadows between us." Her voice trembled as she stepped closer, as if the space they were shrinking was the fragile border between hope and devastation. "And if the truth shatters what little remains, better to face shattering than live in the ruins of silence." His hand found hers, fingers entwining, with a tenderness that betrayed the steel beneath his skin. "I am no longer the man who built walls to keep you out. I want to build bridges instead." The palace seemed to hold its breath. The distant murmur of the desert wind intertwined with the faint scent of jasmine that clung to the night air, weaving a tapestry of fragile promise. A sudden knock shattered the fragile calm, sharp and urgent. Both turned as the door opened once more, revealing the chamberlain's somber expression. "My lord," he said, voice steady but grave, "the tribal leaders have gathered cloaked in defiance. They demand to see you before dawn." The sheikh's jaw tightened, shadows flickering across his face like restless ghosts. "The desert tests my resolve yet again," he murmured, releasing her hand reluctantly. "This peace we hold is more fragile than I imagined." She nodded, the weight of her secret tightening like a noose. "Go then. Your land needs you." His eyes held hers a moment longer, laden with unspoken regret and a glimmer of hope. "I will return for you." And with that promise whispered into the night, he vanished into the labyrinth of the palace, leaving behind the echo of his footsteps and a room cold with absence. Left alone, she sank onto the velvet settee, the necklace cold against her skin, a reminder that some truths were meant to be buried, even if their weight crushed the soul beneath. Outside, the desert's grip tightened. Winds howled like ancient wolves, carrying secrets across dunes glittering under the moonlight. Within the palace walls, alliances shifted like sands, and loyalty was a currency as valuable as gold. In the heart of her chamber, the woman's eyes closed as memories flooded back, moments of laughter, now ghosts, whispers of promises long forgotten. She was a pawn in a game far larger than her heart could bear. Yet beneath the surface, a fire flickered, a resolve born not of helplessness, but of survival. A soft rustle stirred her from the depths of thought. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in silence, eyes sharp and calculating. "You trust too much in promises," figure murmured, voice like velvet dipped in venom. The Sheikh's world is shifting. Your secret will be the blade that can sever his crown or pierce his heart. Her breath caught, the room suddenly thick with menace. The necklace she clutched burned against her touch, a symbol not only of love, but of peril. Choose wisely whom you confide in, the shadow whispered, before melting back into the darkness. The night deepened, cloaking the palace in mystery. Outside, the desert stars flickered as silent witnesses to a saga poised on the brink of revelation. Within the silence, a fragile hope endured, fragile as glass, yet sharp enough to cut through the veils of deception. But beneath that hope, a darker truth stirred, waiting to break free from its prison and rewrite the fate of the billionaire sheikh and the woman bound to him by more than just vows. And as the first light of dawn threatened to spill over the horizon, she knew one thing with chilling certainty. The secret she carried was no longer hers alone to bear. And someone, unseen yet closer than ever imagined, had already begun to unravel it. The moonlight spilled through the carved lattice of her chamber window, casting intricate shadows that danced upon the silk-draped walls. Her fingers trembled as they lingered on the pendant, an emblem not just of past affection, but of the secret that tightened around her heart like a noose. The air was thick, not with the desert heat, but with the suffocating weight of destiny poised to unfurl. Outside, the palace hummed with restless whispers. The courtiers' conspiratorial glances, the muted steps of the chamberlain, delivering urgent news, all threads weaving a tapestry of impending upheaval. Yet within the sanctuary of these walls, a quieter storm raged between two souls battered by time and silence. The door opened without announcement, and he emerged from the shadows that clung to the ornate corridors. The billionaire sheikh. His presence was a tempest wrapped in tailored elegance, eyes dark pools reflecting memories and pain etched too deep to erase. The lines on his face spoke of sleepless nights and battles fought both within and without. He paused, searching for words that had long been buried beneath pride and regret. His gaze met hers, and in that moment, the years of distance cracked open like ancient, brittle stone. "I could not stay away," he confessed, voice rough, each syllable heavy with longing. "Not after the night we almost found truth between us." His breath faltered, as if the admission cost him more than he could bear. She let silence answer him, the delicate tension between them stretched taut. Her eyes, steady despite the turbulence inside, held his like an anchor in the storm. "Then speak, before this fragile hope slips beyond our reach," she urged, each word a fragile bridge spanning the gulf of their shared pain. He stepped closer, shedding the armor of indifference, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities, the scent of jasmine lingering like a promise. His hand reached out slowly, trembling just enough to betray the fortress he was beginning to dismantle. "You have carried your silence with such grace," he murmured, voice thick with remorse. "And I, a man who drowned in his own shadows." His fingertips brushed the delicate curve of her cheek, a touch both tentative and possessive. Her breath caught, the ghost of a smile lingering as the unspoken walls around her heart trembled. Yet beneath the fleeting warmth, fear remained, a fear born from the knowledge that the peace they sought was fragile, as easily broken as glass under the harsh desert sun. Before either could speak further, a sharp rap shattered the fragile cocoon of intimacy. Both turned, the intrusion ruthless and urgent. The chamberlain entered, his expression grave, eyes clouded with the weight of news he wished he never bore. "My lord," he declared, voice steady, yet laden with urgency. "The tribes of the eastern border have gathered. Their patience thins like desert sands, and they demand your presence before dawn." The billionaire Sheikh's jaw clenched, the steel of command sliding back over the vulnerability he'd just revealed. "The desert tests my will once more," he said, voice low but resolute. "Their unrest could unravel what little peace we hold." She stood, steady, despite the storm swirling in her chest. "Then you must face the tempest. The fate of your people rests with your strength." His eyes softened, the briefest flicker of regret crossing his features. "I will return," he vowed, voice heavy with promise and pain, "not as the man who fled, but as one who claims what was lost." He turned, the weight of duty reclaiming him, and stepped back into the labyrinth of golden halls. The sound of his footsteps faded, swallowed by the vastness of the palace and the silence he left behind. Alone, she closed her eyes, the pendant cold against her skin, tethering her to a past too dangerous to recall fully. The secret it disguised was no longer hers alone. It hummed with life, a sleeping serpent poised to strike. Outside, the desert wind howled through the dunes, whispering ancient warnings. Within the palace walls, shadows lengthened as ambition and treachery stirred unseen. A soft rustle pulled her gaze toward the darkened corner, where a figure emerged, cloaked not only in black but in menace. The intruder's voice, smooth as poison, traced a breath against the chill air. "Trust is a luxury your kind cannot afford, especially with secrets like yours," the figure said, eyes glinting with cruel delight. "The Sheikh's world is shifting, and your silence could be the blade that severs his crown or pierces his heart." Her pulse hammered a frantic rhythm as those words sank into her bones. The necklace she clutched blazed faintly, a warning and a curse entwined. "Watch carefully whom you choose to trust," the shadow whispered, before merging back into the darkness, leaving her heart pounding with dread and defiance. The night's fragile promise lay shattered at her feet. Somewhere deep within the opulent halls, palace, servants whispered of rebellion, of broken alliances as fragile as the trust now fraying between two lost souls. In the solitude of her chamber, she gathered the scattered pieces of her courage, knowing the road ahead would demand sacrifices she had yet to comprehend. Her lips parted in a whisper, carried by the desert breeze. "I am ready." But far beyond the gilded walls, another pair of eyes watched, cold and unblinking, betraying a knowledge that could unravel their world forever. And with a breath sharp as desert steel, the unseen hand reached for the secret that could destroy or save the billionaire Sheikh's kingdom. The silence cracked. The game was no longer theirs alone to play. The first light of dawn scraped the horizon with pale fingers, brushing the gilded edges of the palace rooftop. Inside, the vast halls, once swept by whispers of unrest, now throbbed with the heavy pulse of imminent confrontation. The billionaire sheikh stood at the balcony, the weight of his crown a cold iron pressing against his temples. His gaze cupped through the desert mist, seeking answers that the endless sands could not provide. Inside her chamber, the woman paced restlessly, the sharp clink of the hidden pendant beneath her silk robe, a constant reminder of the secret she guarded. Every step echoed the turmoil, twisting inside her. A conflict not only of loyalty, but of survival. The palace walls, ornate and majestic, held their own secrets, but none so perilous as the one she carried close to her heart. Silence, once a barren desert between two souls, had thawed these past nights. Yet the shadow of that secret now threatened to drown every fragile ember of trust kindled between them. Each message exchanged through stolen glances, each hesitant touch, was now burdened by the knowledge that the veil would soon lift, exposing all to the ruthless light of day. The sheikh turned from the balcony as footsteps approached, measured, deliberate. His chamberlain entered, his face carved from stone, but eyes betraying a quiet storm beneath his restraint. "My lord, the tribal leaders wait in the courtyard. Their patience wanes, their demands grow louder," he reported, voice low yet edged with urgency. The sheikh's jaw clenched. The time for diplomacy phrase thin. The desert tests not only the strength of my rule, but the resolve of my heart, he murmured. His palms pressed against the marble pillar, a fortress against the tempest raging both outside and within. "I will face them," he declared, voice forged with determination. "But I must also protect what little hope remains behind these walls." Behind him, the chamber doors opened once more. She entered quietly, the folds of her dress whispering against the polished floor. Her eyes met his, no longer with the cool detachment of a stranger, but with the flicker of fragile alliance. They stood there, a breath apart, the silence now heavy with meaning. "You carry the weight of more than just my absence," she said softly, her voice trembling not from fear, but from the courage birthed in suffering. "I fear the secret I keep may destroy you and us." His gaze darkened, the shadow of past pain flickering across his features. "Whatever storm threatens our land, no secret can be more perilous than the walls we build around our hearts," he replied. "If you share it with me, we face it together." A flicker of vulnerability cracked her stoic mask. "There are those who watch from the shadows, waiting to wield the truth as a weapon." He stepped forward, closing the distance until the shimmering threads of their garments brushed, intimate and raw. "Then we must become shadows ourselves, vigilant and fierce. I will not lose you to the treachery festering in these halls." Moments stretched thin as the desert heat pressed against the stone. Promises, mingling with the scent of jasmine, wafting through the half-open window. The fragile alliance of two battered hearts sought shelter in distant hopes. Suddenly, a sharp crack shattered the fragile calm, a hurried knock at the chamber door. They turned in unison, breath caught in suspended anticipation. The chamberlain reappeared, urgency deepening his expression. "Forgive the intrusion, Your Highness, but the unrest is not confined to the tribes." A message arrived, an envoy from the southern coast, bearing news that chills even the fiercest desert winds. The sheikh's brows knotted tighter. "Speak." "The merchant caravans report that the southern ports are under threat. Pirates, and worse, whispers of an alliance seeking to destabilize your reign through forces stealthier than any blade." A harsh gust of wind rattled the windows, as if the desert itself exhaled in warning. The woman's hand tightened reflexively on the pendant, the cold metal biting against her skin. The weight of her secret suddenly seemed both a shield and a dagger. The billionaire sheikh stared into the distance, a warrior summoned once more to a broader battlefield. Yet this struggle was different. This was a war fought in silence, in shadows, where love and politics intertwined perilously. He turned to her, voice a fierce promise, cutting through the stillness. "No matter the storms that gather, we will stand unbroken. Your secret is mine now. Your fight becomes my own." Their eyes locked, a blaze of defiance and hope igniting between them. The walls that had kept them apart were crumbling, brick by brick under the onslaught of truth and yearning. But beyond the palace gates, cloaked figures moved like specters in the desert night. Eyes gleamed with ambition and malice, plotting turns that could rend not just the empire, but the fragile bond forging within. And in the deepest shadows of the palace, a whispered name was carried on the dry desert wind, one that neither the billionaire sheikh nor his bride had dared to speak aloud. The name that could shatter empires. The name that could snuff out the fragile light kindling between them. The name that would soon be known to all. Qadira. The morning sun crept slowly over the horizon, casting a pale gold across the palace rooftops. The vast emirate lay silent under a sky, stripped of its velvet cloak, but inside the walls, tension hung thick like the midday desert heat. The billionaire sheikh stood motionless by the arched balcony, his dark eyes sweeping across the sand-strewn realm he ruled with iron will, and now with a heart as raw and vulnerable as the endless dunes. Behind him, the heavy oak doors of his chamber opened, and she stepped inside. The woman who had once been a stranger now shared the fragile space beside him, their footsteps silent on the cool marble. Her gaze held a storm of dread and determination, the weight of her secret ever present beneath the silk folds of her gown. The pendant she clutched tightly beneath her robes was more than a mere trinket. It was a silent witness to their perilous past and uncertain future. He turned, offering her a look that was no longer cold or distant, but edged with hard-earned hope. "We stand on the edge of a precipice," he said quietly, voice laced with the scars of unspoken sorrow and fierce resolve. "The tribes will test my patience, but the truth between us shall be our shield." She stepped closer, the subtle perfume of jasmine trailing behind her like a secret whispered on the desert wind. "And yet the shadows inside these walls grow darker," she replied, her voice barely more than a breath. "There are eyes that watch, waiting for our silence to shatter." The sheikh's jaw tightened, a restless crack in his otherwise regal composure. Then we must burn those shadows with the light of our truth, he declared. His fingers found hers, warm and unyielding, a silent pact forged in the quiet dawn. Their fragile alliance, born of desperation and hope, was abruptly shattered by the sharp rap of the chamber door. Both turned as the chamberlain entered, his expression grave and urgent. "My lord, the tribal leaders gather in the courtyard, their patience worn thin. They demand your presence immediately." He nodded, the weight of his crown settling heavier on his shoulders. "Prepare the guards. The desert tests the strength of my rule once more." His eyes met hers, an unspoken promise shimmering between them. "I will return for you." As the door closed behind him, the cold silence returned, settling over the room like a suffocating shroud. The woman sank onto the velvet settee, her fingers trembling as they brushed the delicate pendant. It was both a lifeline and a noose, her secret a silent threat poised to unravel everything. Outside, the palace buzzed with restless whispers. Courtiers glanced furtively. Servants exchanged coded words. The air thickened with intrigue and fear. Powerful forces conspiring in shadows, ready to strike with ruthless precision. A soft movement caught her attention, a dark figure emerging from the shadows of the corridor. Cloaked in silence, eyes gleaming with calculated menace, the visitor's voice slid through the stillness like liquid poison. Trust is a dangerous luxury for those who walk the line of secrets. The woman's heart thundered as the words sank deep. "The Sheikh's world is shifting," the shadow continued, voice low. "And your secret is the blade that will either sever his crown or pierce his heart." She swallowed hard, the pendant burning beneath her fingers. "Be cautious whom you call ally," the figure warned, before retreating into darkness as swiftly as it appeared. The threat hung heavy, woven into the very fabric of the palace's gilded halls. Each breath she took was measured, each heartbeat a drum of looming danger and fragile hope. Night had slipped away, but the desert's chill remained, seeping into the stones and the soul alike. Later that afternoon, the courtyard teemed with the tribal leaders, stern faces marked by generations of desert sun and hardened by the ruthless sands. The billionaire sheikh arrived, crown heavy, eyes sharp with unyielding command. Yet beneath the veneer of power, a tempest raged, a war not only for the land, but for the woman left behind, whose secret might cost him everything. The air was suffused with the scent of leather, spices, and tension. The dry wind carried murmurs like wildfire, as alliances hung precariously in the balance. The sheikh's voice rang out, steady and precise, but his mind was torn between the demands of his empire and the fragile bond rekindling in the shadowed halls of his palace. As the gathering edged toward confrontation, his thoughts flickered back to the woman's trembling hands clutching the pendant. The secret they both guarded dangled on the precipice of exposure, a shackle waiting to shatter or a key to freedom. That evening, the palace grew colder. She waited, the shadows bending and twisting behind golden drapes, every creak and whisper sharpening her senses. Their brief, stolen moments bloomed like fragile flowers in a desert storm. But so did the threats. A night thick with possibility and peril. When the Sheikh finally returned, exhaustion etched in every line of his face, their eyes locked in silent understanding. There was no need for words. Their souls conversed in the language of longing and fear. But peace was a fleeting mirage. A carefully folded letter, slipped beneath her chamber door, trembled in her hands. The seal was unfamiliar, yet marked with the unmistakable insignia of the palace's darkest faction. Her breath caught as she read only a few cryptic lines. "The past you bury is the seed of your ruin. Qadira's shadow extends farther than you know. Choose your next steps wisely, or all will burn." The room seemed to contract, the walls pressing inward with the weight of that single message. Outside, the desert night whispered of coming storms. And in that instant, the woman understood. The secret was no longer theirs alone to bear. The game had changed, and Qadira's name was no longer just a whisper in the wind. It was a promise of devastation waiting in the wings. The courtyard simmered under the blistering noonday sun, the air heavy with the scent of dust and tension. Tribal leaders gathered beneath tents woven with faded colors, faces carved by years of unforgiving desert winds. Their eyes held more than defiance. They bore the weight of generations demanding respect, justice, and answers from the Sheikh who ruled their lands. Inside the palace, the corridors seemed oppressively silent, walls whispering secrets that no one dared to voice aloud. The billionaire Sheikh paced the grand chamber, his silhouette sharp against the lattice windows where sunlight fractured into shimmering patterns. His fingers clenched and unclenched as if wrestling invisible chains, the burden of leadership, the growing unrest, and most of all, the woman whose secret now endangered everything he cherished. Footsteps approached, soft but resolute. She entered, her presence a quiet storm amid the grand opulence. The folds of her gown whispered against the marble floor, scent of jasmine trailing after her like a promise. Her eyes searched his, no longer distant, but a beacon flickering with uncertainty and hope. "The tribes will not wait," he said without turning. "Their patience is worn thin, as the desert night is short." His voice was steady, but the edge of exhaustion softened its steel. She stepped beside him, the fragile alliance between them, forming an unspoken pact. "And neither can I," she whispered. "This secret, it festers like a wound beneath the skin, ready to bleed truth no one is prepared to wash away." He finally faced her, the weight of all he hid flickering in his dark eyes. "Tell me then, if revealing it risks all we've strived to protect, do we sacrifice our peace, or do we let silence become our undoing?" Her breath trembled, emotions tangled between fear and resolve. "I have guarded it for years, but the walls close in. Qadira's shadow lengthens, her name drawing knives from corners you trust." His jaw tightened, pain folding into anger. Qadira. The name haunts the palace like a ghost in a storm. He reached out, fingers brushing her hand with hesitant tenderness. "We face the desert winds together. No secret, no threat will unravel what we might still build." The distant echoes of the courtyard, stirred like a restless beast. Outside, fervent voices rose, the leader's impatience crackling like embers ready to ignite. Suddenly, the doors flung open. The chamberlain stood, face pale where his usual composure cracked, breath shallow from urgency. "My lord, the situation turns darker. Reports have come from the southern coast. A fleet moves with shadows, not sails. Pirates allied with unknown powers threaten our trade routes." The Sheikh's dark gaze sharpened, the battle lines of a ruler drawn not by choice, but necessity. The desert tests all: loyalty, power, love, but none so fiercely as when the enemy lurks within. The woman's fingers tightened on the pendant hidden beneath her gown, an icy surge lacing her veins. The secret she bore now felt like a ticking wound, a time bomb in the heart of their fragile peace. "Prepare the council. Our enemies seek cracks in our walls," the Sheikh commanded, voice slicing through the oppressive air. "And yet, there is one breach I cannot mend without you." Their eyes met. A silent confession, heavier than words. The empire, their love, and the secret that bound them teetered on the cusp of ruin and rebirth. That night, the palace held its breath under a sky draped in eternity. The Sheikh returned from the council chambers, his steps slower. The weight of the day pressed deep into his shoulders. She awaited him, standing by the fountain, where moonlight fractured into 1,000 silver shards upon the water's surface. Their hands found each other, the fragile touch a lifeline amid the storm. "Qadira's name is not just a shadow, it is a blade wielded by unseen hands," she murmured, voice cracking like the desert earth underfoot. "I fear the palace is a web, and we the prey caught in its threads." He cupped her face, thumb tracing the line of her jaw with reverence and desperate hope. "Then we become the hunters. No one will unravel us, not while I breathe." As the moon sailed higher, a flicker of movement haunted the edge of the gardens. Cloaked figures slipped through shadows with predatory grace, whispering promises steeped in betrayal. In the deepest night, a single hand reached silently toward the pendant at her throat. A hand adorned not with friendship, but with deadly intent. The delicate chain trembled, a harbinger of the tempest to come. And as the first stars blinked cold witness, the billionaire sheikh and the woman bound to him stood on the edge of a precipice where love, loyalty, and secrets would collide, and nothing would ever be the same again. The courtyard buzzed with restless whispers, the heat of the midday sun searing the tensions among the gathered tribal leaders. Their faces, weathered by desert storms and years of tradition, held a fierce determination as they awaited the billionaire sheikh's arrival. The fragile thread that held the emirate together threatened to snap with every passing hour. Inside the palace, the air was thick with a different kind of weight, the clandestine burden of secrets and unspoken fears. In the quiet sanctuary of her chamber, the woman traced the smooth outline of the pendant hidden beneath her silk gown. Its cool metal was a stark contrast to the fire burning low inside her. Fear, hope, and the aching desire for truth. The door opened softly, and the billionaire sheikh entered, his silhouette framed by the lattice window where sunlight fractured like shattered glass. His eyes, dark and unreadable, sought hers immediately. The veneer of command was still there, but beneath it flickered a vulnerability few had witnessed. "We face the desert's wrath today," he said, voice low but steady, "and the tribe's patience dwindles like the last grains of sand in an hourglass." She stepped forward, the scent of jasmine trailing behind her like a whispered promise. "And yet, the storm within these walls is no less fierce," she murmured. "Qadira's shadow grows longer. Her name is the blade, hidden beneath the silk of our palace." His jaw clenched tightly, muscles twitching, as if waging a battle within himself. "Qadira," he echoed gravely. "A name that haunts every corner of this place, a specter threatening to devour all we've fought to protect." Their hands found each other instinctively, a fragile union amid the surging tempest. "We face not just enemies beyond our borders," she warned, "but ghosts of the past wielding poison from within." The Sheikh nodded, the steely rain of his will enveloping him once more. "Then we stand together, not as ruler and subject, but as two souls bound by the scars of love and war. No secret, no conspiracy, will unravel what remains of us." A sudden knock jolted the silence like a gunshot. The chamberlain appeared, his countenance pale and urgent. "My lord, the southern coast sends dire tidings. Fleets move as shadows beneath the waves. Pirates allied with unknown forces, threatening the lifeblood of the Emirates' trade and wealth." The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed with the cold fire of a man who has faced betrayals too many to count. "The desert tests loyalty and power, yes, but this is a war fought in silence and shadows. We must be sharper than any blade." She tightened her grip on the pendant, feeling its harsh bite against her palm. The secret she guarded throbbed like a hidden wound, a curse threatening to undo them all. "Prepare the council," the Sheikh commanded, voice cutting through the despair. "The fractures in our realm widen, but there is one fault line only we can mend." Their shared gaze carried a storm of understanding, between love and duty, between hope and the ever-present threat of ruin. The day waned, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, the palace settled into a tense quiet. The Sheikh returned from the gathering, exhaustion etched into his sharp features. She awaited him by the grand fountain, its waters shimmering like scattered jewels beneath the emerging stars. Their fingers intertwined, tender, desperate, a lifeline in the encroaching darkness. Her voice trembled with a brittle strength. "Qadira's name is no mere whisper. It is a blade forged to sever crowns and hearts alike." He cupped her face, eyes burning with a promise that scared and sustained them. "Then we become the blade's edge, together." From the shadows by the palace gardens, cloaked figures moved with lethal grace, whispers dripping like venom into the night. A hand, silent, precise, reached toward the pendant at her throat, a touch not of love, but of betrayal. The chain trembled, the secret's weight suddenly a knife pressed against the fragile fabric of their world. And far from the warmth of their fragile bond, a voice whispered across the moonlit sands, cold and merciless. "Qadira is no longer a shadow. She is the storm that will tear everything apart." The desert breeze carried a fragile calm as dawn's first golden rays spilled across the Emirate's endless sands. Within the palace, the silence that had ruled their lives now bowed gently to a quiet promise. A promise born from shattered walls and the courage to face long-buried truths. The billionaire sheikh stood by the expansive balcony, his silhouette bathed in the soft light of new beginnings. His eyes no longer reflected only the weight of a crown, but the stirrings of a heart renewed. Behind him, the woman approached, her footsteps soundless on the marble floor, but steady as the resolve that had carried her through years of silence and fear. The pendant resting beneath her robe gleamed faintly, no longer a symbol of chains, but of a secret shared, carried together. Her gaze met his, not with hesitation, but with unwavering trust. "We have faced the shadows," his voice murmured, low and steady, "and now the dawn calls us to stand united." She reached out, her hand sliding into his, with a tenderness born of countless unspoken prayers. The gulf that once yawned wide between them had narrowed, replaced by a bridge forged in forgiveness and longing. Outside, the court stirred. Word had been spoken, truths unveiled. The whispers that once bred fear now carried a different tune, a melody of hope rippling through the palace halls. The tribal leaders had come seeking confrontation, but found a ruler transformed, stronger not just in power, but in heart. The unrest that had threatened to sunder the empire softened before a leader willing to bear his people's burdens honestly. He spoke to the gathered tribes beneath the scorching sun, his voice firm yet tempered with humility. "Our strength lies not only in deserts behind us, but in the trust we build today. Let the past no longer bind us, but guide us forward, as one." The response was a slow, growing chorus of acceptance. The battle for peace was not won by swords alone, but by the courage to dismantle walls within and without. Back in the palace, the woman watched from her chamber window as the sun spread warmth over the dunes. Her fingers brushed the pendant as a silent vow, not just of love, but of shared destiny. The secret she had guarded like a treacherous flame now burned clean in the light of truth. There would be trials ahead, but for the first time, she faced them not as a prisoner of silence, but as a partner in hope. The billionaire sheikh returned to her side at last, his steps no longer love reclaimed from echoes of pain. He knelt before her, the grand halls radiating their restored harmony. "I was a man lost to bitterness and fear," he confessed, voice trembling with honest confession. "But you showed me that love is not possession, but a journey of truth and surrender." Her eyes shimmered with tears, joy mingling with relief. "And I, who thought I must carry secrets alone, now stand beside you, ready to face whatever dawn awaits." Their hands entwined, a silent pledge made in the golden morning light. Outside, the gardens bloomed, flowers unfolding their delicate petals as if mirroring the fragile beauty of the bond healing within the palace walls. The days that followed bore witness to their renewal. Together, they navigated the intricate dance of leadership and love, their partnership a beacon not only to their people, but to all who had doubted the power of redemption. The palace no longer echoed with silence, but with laughter, whispers of shared dreams, and a future they carved hand in hand. In quiet moments, they spoke of the past, of secrets laid bare and wounds healed, not as burdens, but as the foundation of their strength. The name Qadira, once a shadow cast in menace, now stood confronted and dissolved within the unity they'd forged. The threats that lingered became challenges faced with unwavering trust. Their story, once a tapestry of pain and distance, had turned into a symphony of hope and belonging. And when the evening descended, wrapping the emirate in a velvety embrace, the billionaire Sheikh and the woman bound to him by fate and choice stood together beneath the stars. No longer strangers trapped by a destiny neither chose, but partners embracing the promise of a shared journey. His hand rested lightly on hers, a touch that spoke of a love both fierce and tender. Her smile, luminous and free, promised all the tomorrows they would greet side by side. In that sacred moment, beneath the vast desert sky, the echoes of silence finally gave way to a new language. The language of love fulfilled, of hearts unguarded, and a future written in light. The empire they ruled now reflected the peace blooming within, a kingdom not built on walls of gold, but on the enduring strength of truth, forgiveness, and unwavering love.